Thanks everyone for joining this Opendorse Partner Spotlight. I'm Daniel Mickells with Opendorse and excited to be joined today by Tristan Hobbes with Bryant Athletics. Tristan, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dan, for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and get to it. If you just want to start off by stating who you are, your current position, and kind of how you got to this place along your career.
As Dan said, my name is Tristan Hobbes. I'm the Assistant Athletic Director for Athletic Communications at Bryant University, which is located in Smithfield, Rhode Island, about 15 minutes north of Providence, Rhode Island, the capital of the nation's smallest state. It's going to be my 10th year at Bryant, starting in the fall. I started in 2011 as an intern. I spent 3 years as an intern, kept sticking around. I was made full-time after my third year. I spent 3 years as a full-time associate director of communications, and then got lucky enough to be elevated to the assistant AD role when my boss took a new job at Holy Cross. So this will be my fourth year, I think, going into my fourth year as the assistant AD at Bryant. It's been a long 10 years. It started when we were just finishing our transition from Division II to Division I. So I've got to kind of really experience a whole lot of newness, a whole lot of different things that have happened, and the projection of our program from being a small FCS level program to kind of a program that's won a bunch of championships and recruits at a national level.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on a decade. It's always something to
crazy.
be excited about. I always joke when I get those big milestones that there's a lot of things in my life I haven't done for 7 years, 10 years, whatever it might be. And it's definitely an accomplishment. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, Bryant is one of those places that it keeps you sticking around. It's funny because we pride ourselves on the accomplishments of our interns. We're a department that has a lot of interns and GAs, and being able to get the next crop of interns, we showcase the places that our interns have gone on to work afterwards. We've had people in our video department that have gone on to Stanford, Houston, Vermont, Boston University, TCU. We've had SIDs that have gone on to Power 5 schools. So it's really great to kind of see our interns flourish after Bryant. And here I am. I didn't go anywhere after 3 years as an intern, and it's paid off.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like you've flourished at Bryant, so
right.
Success story in its own right for sure. So tell me, like, how did you get interested working in sports, communication specifically? Kind of, what was the path you took to this career now?
Well, I was an athlete in college. I played baseball at Eastern Connecticut State, a Division III school in Connecticut. I played for my uncle, but growing up, we didn't have many TVs in our house. But I would be upstairs, and my mom would say I'd watch hockey upstairs, and I'd come down and I'd tell them all about hockey and who was the best player in the world that day, and based on what SportsCenter was telling me. And I would go out and I would get video games, and I would mute the video games, and I would broadcast the video games. And I always wanted to be a Major League Baseball broadcaster. So for a number of years, that was my true passion. And I did 6 summers in college summer leagues, from the Cape Cod League out to the West Coast League in Walla Walla, Washington, and then back to the New England Collegiate League in Ocean State for 2 summers. Those were my last 2 as a summer broadcaster. But I really wanted to be a professional baseball broadcaster. I went to the winter meetings. I did all those different things, but it just always felt like maybe it wasn't going to work. And when I was at Eastern Connecticut, when I started broadcasting our basketballs and our soccers, the SID there, who's been there forever, who was there when I played and is still there now, Bob Malta, his nickname is Bullet. The guy never seemed like he left the office. And he really had a true passion, and he cared about the student athletes. He cared about who we were as people, not just as athletes. And that really rubbed off on me. And I always felt like, man, like, feels like I want to do something like this. And he had that never-ending drive to do what he was doing. And when I got to Bryant and the position opened up at Bryant, it felt like a place that it was going to allow me to do so many different things. It was going to allow me to not only broadcast, but also to kind of start to hone on some other things that in today's world, that was in 2011, and now in 2020, if you're not able to broadcast make graphics, write stories, do on-air stuff, you're really not as marketable. And so in 2011, I was like, all right, well, I can kind of do all these things. Let me see how it works. And here I am now. I still broadcast a bunch. I broadcast football, some basketball games, and it's been a journey, but it's been fun to kind of be able to do everything.
Awesome. No, it sounds exciting. Really to encompass, all of those passions, especially that passion for broadcasting, and still being able to do that. I know it's a dream for a lot of young kids, right? Everybody wants to be the next Brad Nessler or Mike Tirico, whoever it might be. And a lot of dreams definitely die out, sports broadcasting, myself included. So it's
well, the big thing now is that it's my parents still live in upstate New York. I'm from Utica, New York, and so it's always nice to broadcast, because my mom's always like, well, when are you broadcasting again? Because a lot of times that's the few times they get to hear me is when they watch the streams. They're huge Bryant Bulldog fans, or and so they listen to all the games, watch all the games on NEC Front Row. So it's a way to stay connected in that way as well.
nice. So obviously you mentioned, Bryant's transition from, the FCS level to Division I. And I know we've talked in the past that you're still, a smaller university in the grand scheme of things when it comes to Division I. So could you maybe just explain to everybody how you guys have your social digital team built, and how you guys go about making sure that each sport is covered equally at Bryant?
Yeah, it's tough, because when I got to Bryant, we had just kind of come out of the Division II days. 2008, 2009 was our first year as a Division I program in the 4-year transition. In 2011, 2012 was our last year of transition. And part of that transition is trying to build up coaching staffs, trying to build up support staff to what it takes to be a Division I program. And obviously the coaching staffs were the first part of that. We, in the last couple of years, as support staffs in social media, or in communications and in videography, have started to get to the point where now we're able to have a full-time director of new media, digital media. In the past, that had been an intern or a graduate assistant. So on top of streaming 100 games a year and the additional creative stuff that position requires, they were also going to class twice a week at night and having to do the course load. Obviously not ideal. I have a lot of admiration for the GA that we had, Luke Anderson, who's now at BU as a director of digital media, his ability to kind of handle all of that. But in today's world, not really a reality, I don't think. So we're blessed to have a full-time director of new media, Kelsey Mariah Orsman, who I think is outstanding. She had not worked in sports before we hired her, and she has completely kind of changed our look on social media. And the rest of our staff, we have one other full-time, my assistant, Miles McQuiggan, who also is a top SID, I think, in the Northeast, and in this kind, he has such a passion for what he does. But then you look at the rest of it, and we have a GA and an intern, our other 2 SID positions, communication positions. And this past year, we were able to give Kelsey an intern that handles broadcasting, allowing Kelsey to focus more on the creative side of things. So that has really kind of helped us beef up our creativity when it comes to, for instance, for us in our league, basketball is king. And we were able to send Kelsey on the road much more this year with basketballs to have the raw footage, to have the practice day stuff, to have those things that we didn't have in the past, that is able to beef up our social media content, and via Opendorse, then share that with our student athletes who are able to beef up their image, things that we just didn't have because we didn't have the personnel. So it's been nice to be able to kind of spread out the wealth a little bit more and focus on more things other than our broadcasts, because when you only have one person, you really have to make a decision. And a lot of times that decision was because we take a lot of pride in how we broadcast our games. But now with a full-time, and we've had our GA who was an intern and turned into a GA. So she's been here for 2 years now, so she gets it. it's good to have a group of people that we're able to trust, and you teach them enough in August and September that by October you trust them going out to a soccer game by themselves and handling their job in a way that you would handle the job if you were the full-time out there. But it really has allowed us to having 6 people in our office and having a director of marketing that's full-time, because that was an intern or a GA for a number of years. It's been nice to be able to have a group of people that you can trust and are there to work. And the biggest thing at Bryant is having the passion to make sure that Bryant Athletics is the best it can be. And that's what really drives us. And I think that's really kind of helped us kind of mold about what we do and how we do it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that sounds great. Obviously, you still have a lot on your plate though. You're broadcasting for football, some men's basketball you mentioned. I know you've got SID duties as well, a variety of different sports. So, while you guys seem to start specializing a little more and have some full-time commitments and focus in certain areas, I know you still do a lot. So how do you find the time for that balance and to make time for the social media aspect and the Opendorse side of things on your day-to-day role?
If you ask anybody in my office, if you ask my wife, if you ask my parents, I'm not always the best planner in terms of like planning ahead. So a lot of times I'm more of today's National Mascot Day, let's post something. Well, other people in my office are, Tristan, it's on the calendar. It was National Mascot Day. Last week it was National Mascot Day. 2 weeks before that, we should plan out something to put on social media today. I'm more of today's National Mascot Day. What do we got? And I'm trying to get better at that. And one of the things that I think Opendorse has helped me is it really, because I look at it as when I got married last year, and a lot of times in the last 12 months, when we have something at our house where we're making a meal, hey, let's use this that we got for our wedding. Let's make sure we use the things we got. And when we got Opendorse in January, let's use the thing that we have. And I think that's helped shape my focus on how the different timing I have in my day. Okay, we have this great resource. Let's make sure we're using it. And okay, since we're going to do this, that means that I can't do this, this, or this, which is probably a good thing. It's cut some fat off of different things that maybe I would do, like sitting here staring at my computer, trying to come up with a clever tweet. I've kind of shifted my things around a little bit to be more efficient in making sure that we're able to use the product that we have, because you have it for a reason, and making time to use it is important to do as well. But it is tough because obviously there is a lot of different stuff that you have that's a part of your job that you have to be able to focus on. And there's nothing worse than getting into a rhythm, and then all of a sudden someone says, hey, Tristan, can you write this release for us about this, this, or this? And you're like, I was just in a rhythm about this. Mm-hmm. That's natural for anything. So it's been good to kind of be able to have something to focus on and go through like that.
Well, it sounds like us at Opendorse need to give a hat tip to your wife. Make you think, oh yeah, I should use Opendorse. So, kudos to her, and tell her we appreciate her building that mindset into you of, using the things that you've got. So,
right.
Yeah, thanks to her for sure. Obviously, you've been at Bryant for 10 years. The landscape has obviously changed. You talked about, how things were, you had to be, being able to broadcast, be able to create graphics, be able to, create social media posts, all of that. With that, I'm sure you've seen kind of a shift amongst the student athlete that you work with, right? They are all way more social savvy now than they were 10 years ago. People might have had a Facebook, and Twitter was just getting started. I guess what are the challenges that you've had working with student athletes, and how have you been able to overcome those?
Well, it's funny because you give social media presentations in 2013, and then you give social media presentations in 2020, and it's just so different. And I think that in our conference, in the Northeast Conference, Tom Pinsons, who works at Central Connecticut, he's their interim AD. He was their director of communications, and now is their interim AD. He does a series of talks in Connecticut with kindergarten through sixth graders, that age, because the reality of it is that kids are becoming social media savvy at such a young age. And so by the time that we see them in college now, an 18-year-old freshman probably knows more about social media than we do. Um, it's crazy. You look at TikTok and all these different applications that are coming out, and it's hard to keep up with it because when you present to them, you have to present in a knowledgeable phase. You
Mm-hmm.
can't present something that maybe isn't true, and they know it's not true because they know more than you. So you have to try to come up with, you have to figure it out yourself. And sometimes that's a challenge, how they use it and what do they use it for, and then try to present to them in a way that, okay, hey, I understand how it's used. I think that if you used it a certain way, it could be very powerful for you. Because that's the biggest thing. They know what they're talking about. And so if you come in not knowledgeable, they just know immediately they write you off. This person doesn't know what they're talking about. And that's been the biggest challenge, making sure that you don't go in there and just say things that can be fact checked and are wrong. You want to be as truthful with the kids, and you want to make sure that you're helping them as much as possible. And in order to do that, you have to be knowledgeable about the subject you're talking to them about. And the biggest thing now, which I love, is that we have a situation going on in our country right now that I think is really changing the landscape for our student athletes. And when you work at a school that have active student athletes that want to share their voices, and you see on social media them doing that, it's very powerful, and you take pride in that, because doing it in a way that is constructive and doing it in a way that can bring change to the things that need to be changed, and you watch them share it that way, and you see these kids that you worked with as freshmen, 18-year-old kids that are now maybe juniors, and you can see their trajectory and how they've matured, and them being able to use their voice in a positive way is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great call out, especially with the way that social media has taken on, in terms of activism, and really
Right.
in the student athletes, across the nation, really take a stand. And,
It's
not about,
incredible.
it's not about rap lyrics or anything anymore. It's about making positive change. And I think it is absolutely incredible. You're right.
It's again, like I this year when we have a social media presentation, and I applauded every team that I spoke to, because it's one thing to be social media savvy. It's another thing to be able to use your voice and your platform in a manner that isn't just about athletics, but is able to provide some change, and to provoke people to think about different things in a certain way. And I mean, I couldn't be more proud.
Absolutely. Well, one final question. We've been growing you pretty hard. We'll throw you a softball here. Obviously, we've all been quarantining for the last few months. What show are you currently binge watching with your wife?
Uh, we we did about every single top 10 show on Netflix you could probably imagine in the first maybe 8 weeks of our quarantine. We've slowed down a little bit. Um, she's watching 13 Reasons Why. Um, I'm trying to get through Yellowstone with Kevin Costner. I just started. I'm on episode 5, and I'm trying to get through it. I haven't been able to finish Ozark. I just started season 3, but I'm kind of getting a little bit of a TV show overload. I'm almost I can't. It's almost like I can't binge any longer. But I'm trying to get through those two.
Well, yeah, I think you and everybody else are kind of hitting that wall when it comes to binging. So it's understandable. Well, I appreciate the time today, Tristan. Appreciate having you as a partner, and thanks again for joining us.
No problem, Dan. It was a pleasure to talk with you, and looking forward to a great year working with you guys at Opendorse.
Us as well. Thanks, Tristan.